I'm Mal, and this is Demigod Debut, a podcast that is sometimes about my friend Julie reading the Percy Jackson books for the first time, but right now, for the last and final time, is about me hanging out with other friends and talking about the show. So I'm joined once again by Bella and Sydney. Before we start, quick spoiler warning for the 5 Percy Jackson books and a little bit of the Heroes of Olympus. So if you're not looking for spoilers for those things, maybe don't listen to this episode. Okay. It has been like 3 minutes since we last spoke, but it will have been a week since the people last heard your voice. In the 3-minute break that we just took, I was informed that there is a mouse in our kitchen. So
No.
Oh, you've added a horror element to this podcast.
there is a mouse in our kitchen, and maybe in the next hour that will be dealt with. I don't know.
Thank you for this breaking news bulletin.
You're welcome. You needed to know. As returning podcast people, I have another question for you. So obviously my favorite character is Annabeth, but do either of you or both of you have a favorite character that you like imprinted on as a child and like have not let go of since?
Like in the whole of human history, or just
No, like specifically in Percy Jackson, but I guess if you have another like character, like feel free.
Oh gosh. Yeah, I have to say I loved Annabeth the most because she was good representation for annoying girls.
Exactly.
I felt a kinship to her.
Yeah, I think I also, Annabeth Chase. I think, like, if you're like a this is me trying girl, or like a former gifted kid, Annabeth Chase is just she just encapsulates all of that, and like her just like wanting everyone to perceive her like as being like the smartest, the best. Like, I don't know if I want to marry her or be her, but I'm pretty sure I want to be her. But I would absolutely settle for marrying her.
If she wasn't so perfect with Percy that I would feel bad breaking them up, that's my wife.
No, literally.
All right, so episodes 7 and 8, the ending of this season of TV. It came so fast. I wish we had gotten more episodes. This like 8-episode seasons of TV is such a bummer thing that we seem to be doing now, but
I hate it. I hate it.
I know. That's why I love Abbott Elementary, but that's a different show.
This is actually, joke's on you, this is an Abbott Elementary podcast now. Episode 7. I have to say, this one does not hit for me. Like, I think this is the one that I was the most disappointed with. There are some things that I really like about it, but some things that I also don't. And I think, number one, the crusty scene. Look how they massacred my boy. I love and adore this scene in the book. I feel like it's such a good like character moment for Percy. Like, you see him kind of have to think his way out of a fight for the first time and like manipulate the situation. And this is the one monster encounter in the show that it like made me mad that they knew what they were getting into walking in. None of the other ones bothered me the way this one did. And this is such a like, and it's probably because this encounter kind of lifts right out, like in terms of overall plot importance. Like, you really don't need this. And so I almost wish that they would have just lifted it out, because that's what I like. I didn't expect that we were going to get this at all. And then for them to put it in there and then make it like, not great, I didn't love.
I disagree. I'm glad that we got a little bit of it, and like,
Okay.
I am glad we got some of it. I think it would like DOA Records would have been so funny, because like that's so clever and funny, and like that's something that definitely like went over my head as a kid, but then like rereading it in college, I was like, that's funny.
I didn't understand the DOA Records until the musical, and I sent both of you a screenshot during my half marathon yesterday. So I was like, this is about to be me at the finish line, and it was just a screenshot of the song DOA, because that's what I was listening to on the Manhattan Bridge as I was trying to like not throw up, because I really thought I was gonna throw up. But
Yeah.
I did not know until I heard that song, and it was like, oh, you're DOA, Dead on Arrival. I was like, oh my gosh. But I don't know, it's like you basically took the like having someone guarding like the lobby, and you basically removed Charon and just replaced it with Krusty, and it's like, why didn't we just leave it as DOA Records?
I agree. I wish that more time would have been spent there rather than, I'm gonna say it, the half-assed cold open we got with Crust. I don't know why they opted to do that, because ultimately I do feel like that probably cost them more money than what they could have done DOA for too.
Well, and I do sort of wonder if some of the change had to do with the fact that in the encounter in the book, Annabeth and Grover get like tied to beds. Because I think there are some weirdos out there, And there's like a certain connotation there with like tying someone down to a bed, and I don't really think we needed to see like two children in that situation. Like reading about it is one thing, but then like to see it, and I don't know, maybe not, maybe I'm overthinking that, but you know, maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, probably. And also, I think maybe why I love this scene is because I just want Krusty's suit. It's giving lime
It
green.
is. It
It's
is.
giving contrast. I loved it. I want one.
Yeah. The suit is good. The suit is good.
I was so distracted by it.
Also, fun fact that I learned, that actor who played Krusty played Charon in the movie.
Ooh, a callback.
Oh, wait, I love that.
So like he was already ready for his role as Charon. Like we could have just kept it as DOA Records.
Oh,
I don't
T, I see where you were going.
Yeah. I don't know. I wanted it to be something that it's not. And most of the other things like I can kind of get past. But for some reason this one just got me.
And that's okay.
The flashbacks in this episode are the thing that I love. I honestly like, I love all of the flashbacks. I think it's really beneficial all these times that we get to see like Sally doing her best to raise Percy and like how hard things were for both of them like during this time, because in the book you get a very like my mom is the best person ever and like never did anything wrong from Percy, and I don't necessarily think that that take is true. I think that's the way he views his mom, but I also do think that like what we see in the show is probably a little more accurate to like what things actually would have been like for them. And so I think, you know, we're getting to see it in a much more accurate way, not through like Percy's biased point of view, which I love and appreciate. And then the whole thing with Percy pushing through the line of dead people and being like, only suckers wait in line. Like, you should come with me to the city and like you could learn some things.
Oh my gosh.
That was so funny.
He's so funny. But also I live in the city and I wait in line. Maybe that makes me a sucker, but I'm also trying to not be a bad person. I don't know.
Yeah, I attribute it to like I didn't grow up here. So I'm like, that's why I wait in line. I'm still like
That's fair.
earning my stripes.
Then we're all dying to some extent. Hilarious. I love him.
He's so funny.
And it's very funny to me the way he goes like, oh, we can pay you, like we have all these drachmas, and then Charon like blows the whistle and like you don't hear anything obviously because it's a dog whistle, and Percy goes, you could buy yourself a new whistle, because he thinks the whistle didn't work.
One thing about Percy is he's gonna be quick. He is gonna be on his toes.
And then I said it when we talked about the book, but I'm gonna say it again. Like, Cerberus is where it would end for me. Actually, like, it probably would have ended a lot sooner than this for me, but like, he's just a puppy. He's just a puppy. And Cerberus is so cute. And are you gonna be mad at me for calling Cerberus cute, Bella? Because I know you're mad at me for thinking the Chimera's cute.
Here's the thing. The fire-breathing reptile horned thing that you think is cute, that's blowing fire at our little bestie up there. That's okay. The three-headed dog, that's a 3-story building. I just think that we should be like maybe a little concerned about it.
He's just a puppy. That's it. That's it. 3 heads, more dog to love.
Okay.
More dog to love.
I can defend that. Can't defend the chimera thing. I feel like that may be un poquito unhinged.
What's that meme that's like they hated him because he told the truth? That's me right now.
No. You're saying you're Jesus?
Jesus preaches love for all, and that includes the Chimera.
Mal thinks she's Jesus.
Oh my gosh.
But I think Annabeth would agree with me because she's the one who gets up on Cerberus and starts.
No,
That is nuts, butts, and coconuts.
I reject that.
Okay, but Book Annabeth was all about Cerberus. She cried when she had to leave Cerberus. Okay, so
I think that's what we call survival tactics. I also think there was definitely an element of fear and like stress release. Yeah. I think there's a lot of reason for crying of like, oh, I just survived a near-death experience by being really brave. Yeah.
Okay, fine. It is a little silly that Cerberus just like ate Grover immediately. Like that was an interesting new and different thing to do. And then when he comes out and he's like slimy, ugh,
Yeah.
disgusting.
I could not have been Aryan. I don't think I could have handled that sensation of being all gooed up.
You know what? Arian's gonna commit. He will commit to the bit, whatever
No.
the bit is.
That is true.
He absolutely is going to commit, and that's why we love him.
Amen.
It kind of makes more sense for them to get the ball at Krusty's instead of it being like the Waterland ball, because it doesn't really make sense for them to carry around like a red rubber ball from Waterland for like that long, you know? I also kind of enjoy like Grover squeaking it and Annabeth being like, maybe give that to me because you're being annoying.
Yeah, Anxious King, Grover Underwood. I love him.
I still love that we play fetch with the murder dog, because even murder dogs deserve to play fetch.
They're just kids. He is just a dog. Exactly.
And then you've got Annabeth on the side of the cliff, which that brings up
Do not
some
even.
trauma that we as readers have, but Annabeth herself doesn't have yet. And then we lost the pearl and the dog, which okay. So I guess this is now the time to talk about the 4 pearls change, I guess, because like obviously we know that like not all 4 pearls are going to make it to Hades's palace because we can't take Sally home yet. But the reasoning that I came to like justify this change is that we needed a reason for Percy to still want to go to the underworld, like believing that he could save his mom. And so like with the 4 pearls, you're like going in thinking that you can still get everyone out safely. It's an interesting change. I don't know if we needed to make the change just to take the pearl away immediately.
Yeah, it just felt a little unnecessary, I think is my thing. But like I also saw like some theories online of like potentially like they would have had another fight of like which 2 were going to go down and who was going to stay, because they only had 3, so they would be thinking like, well, we still have to save Sally. It was interesting.
Yeah, it was like it's not a change that I'm necessarily mad about. It's just one that I'm kind of like, huh, we made a change here, and that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. Do you think it's going to end up becoming important later? That's the only thing that sort of justifies it in my mind. Like this is setting up for something further down the line that we can't really anticipate yet. Because otherwise it's really a nothing change.
Well, and if this was a different show, I feel like we absolutely would have seen like Cerberus just like pop into the mortal world like with the pearl. Like once he ate it, like he just
Oh yeah, that would have been funny. That would have been a good gag.
It would have been a good gag, but I feel like this show is not really about gags, so we didn't do that. So we go back to the flashback, and we've got this time Sally talking to the headmaster person because they say Percy can't go to the school because they don't have the psychological services he needs because he like saw the horse and whatever. And I'm like, it was one incident that you're basing this on. And at what point do you look at that and you say like, wow, kids sure do have a wild imagination. Like, yeah, he saw a Pegasus, but I was also like big into making up stuff as a kid. Like I loved to lie. Like I loved to lie.
Kids have imaginary friends. Like
yeah.
It's a big deal.
And like just the fact that he went on the roof with it, like I don't know, it felt like a very extreme reaction for something like I don't know. But I also am thinking a lot about baby Percy having to hear the headmaster tell Sally that some children are better off with their parent, and Sally immediately being like, I can't accept that, when that's all he wants. Like he wants to be with his mom, and she's like, he can't understand like why she wouldn't want that too. He's like why?
Yeah.
Ugh, like this whole thing just it hurts. It hurts. And Hermes was right when he showed Percy this little flashback and was like, loving someone sometimes is like knowing that you just can't stop hurting each other. Like they both hurt each other a lot in this
pain. They've been through so much.
And I can't wait for things to get better for them.
When is that, girl? When is that?
Yeah, you're right. When is that, actually? All right, so Asphodel. I do think this take on Asphodel is very fascinating. Like the spirits that are tethered down by regrets, and does make me wonder, like, is all of Asphodel like this? Like, how does this affect a character like Hazel, who canonically is in Asphodel at this point? Like, is she tethered down? If you don't regret anything, like, can you not be an Asphodel? Like, I have questions.
Maybe it's like Dante's Inferno's version of hell where there's different levels to it. Like this is just one level of Asphodel, but maybe
like this is just the regret section.
And then maybe there's an anxiety section and witnessing too many horror section. I don't know. We could go on for days.
Maybe. Honestly, though, like this asphodel brought up more questions than it gave answers, because you also have the whole plot point of like Annabeth starting to get rooted down, which I like don't hate, but I also hate that they didn't like tell us what that was about. So I really thought watching episode 7, I was like, oh, cool. Like we're gonna reveal that her regret is kind of like the way that she left things with her father, and that's going to be the thing that like eventually leads to her going home at the end, because at this point there's like nothing that's telling me that like this Annabeth wants to go home, wants to reconcile with her father, and they just don't like give us that answer. Like they don't tell us. And I mean, Sydney, like you said, like they've been giving us like so much exposition. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this when you're not telling me. Also, like the regret of hers feels very obviously her father to me, but I've like seen people online not agree with that. So then I'm like, oh, am I wrong?
I think that could be one interpretation of it because we're not told outright. It could be her dad, it could be Thalia, and what happened because she has this idea of what glory means and what it means to be a hero, and she equates being heroic with being martyred in tragedy, and even becoming a martyr, going that far. So I think that her regret could be not dying in Thalia's place.
That's true. Yeah. I don't know. It's just like, it's interesting that we introduce this regret of hers and then don't give us any like resolution. I don't know. The only other thing I could think of is like we did this just to remove Annabeth from the shoe moments, because like this Annabeth that we see in the show like absolutely would put 2 and 2 together and be like, oh, the shoes from Luke. Luke is up to like
Yeah.
and so like you kind of have to remove her from the equation so we don't get there so soon.
Yeah.
But I also like I don't love that as a justification.
I mean, I did read somewhere that Leah had scheduling conflicts when they were filming this episode. So they did have to strategically write her out. So it is even possible that the writers can't even pinpoint what her regret is.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, this was online, so I don't know the validity of this.
Yeah.
I do think it at least is some kind of explanation as to why they made this creative choice.
But then also like the fact that we don't use it to be the like catalyst towards her going home, like she just goes home like randomly, like there's no lead up to that. Like I'm like you could connect these two things and it would make both things better for me personally. Yeah.
Get Mal a job in the writer's room. Stat.
Let me be there. I won't write anything. I will just be there to give my opinions. That would actually be my ideal job. No lie.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, okay. No real notes on the shoes. That whole pit moment is exactly what I expected it to be, other than like Annabeth not being there. But it is interesting that they find out that they have the bolt before they get to Hades, because in the book, Percy doesn't open the backpack until he's like standing in front of Hades. So it is kind of interesting to give them another chance to just go and like not face Hades at all. But of course, I'm not going to do that because Hades has Sally.
Hey, girl.
Then we go back to the flashback. And Sally's really trying. She bought him the ice cream, but poor baby Percy isn't having it. He's like, why are you trying to get rid of me? I wouldn't do this to you.
Pain.
Terrible.
Manipulator Percy at his best. The next bullet point I had just says, Hades' palace, ...
I didn't know what to expect, and it was wild.
Yeah, I like that it's upside down. I think it's cool.
I loved it.
Yeah.
I really enjoy this take on Hades. Like he's just some guy.
And that's perfect. He doesn't need to be anything else. He's just some guy. He's kind of the loser outcast brother, and it's perfect.
And he wants no part of any war, and also we don't compare him to Hitler even once. So
the best.
An improvement from the book.
Truly an improvement.
Also, like, I think one of the lines of the episode is, you give me what you got, and I give me you what I got. Like, what are you talking about?
That's so Hades. Like, that is such a, like, stupid brother thing to say.
I like that Percy puts together the pieces, like, who's behind stealing the bolt. he's like, it's Kronos. Crazy. And then you've got the whole Hades telling Percy to ask for sanctuary because if it is Kronos, like, you're not safe and, like, I'll protect you in exchange for you giving me the bolt. And this is our, like, kind of second callback to things that, like, Sally has said in the flashbacks, because he's like, this only ends one way, and the only question is, like, how difficult are you gonna make it? Which is fun. We love a parallel. And then Percy's like, no, I'm gonna go find your helm and stop this war. And then you get the hold fast, Mom, which I feel so normal about.
A little spicy.
The way that I will literally rewind that scene just to watch the hold fast mom, because I don't know why, but what it does to my brain chemistry, it's just like deeply important to me. They just like, she loves her son so much that he cares so much that she gets back okay. And that's the type of like parent-child relationship, if I ever have a human child, I want, because like I feel like that's what I have with my mom. And so it's like every kid deserves that. Anyways,
Speaking of mom, speaking of Sally, the way that Sally calls Poseidon, it is insane. It is insane. The way that she just
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Every single bit of that scene.
every single bit.
Just she's using somebody else's
Exactly.
garbage, not even the best food off of her own plate. This is not a holy space. And she doesn't hope, she knows.
No, and the way that we had this whole conversation about, like, you burn what you'll miss the most to get the gods to really listen, and the fact that she is burning, like, someone else's discarded half-drunk milkshake, and this man still comes. He still comes. And like you said, like, she has no doubt that he's gonna come. Insane. Insane.
I mean, like, I love that pretty much everybody is a simp for Sally Jackson because that's what she deserves. Yeah.
As they should be.
it's the only correct way to live.
Exactly. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Percy, I want to be your new stepdad. Cast me as Paul Blowfist, season 3. I'm ready. I'm willing. I'm prepared. Yeah, the tension, the way that they don't look at each other the entire time they're talking. I feel normal. This is fine.
It's just so good. The way that, like, I know I mentioned this earlier, but like it's not announced who he is. Like, it is never said. It's just context clues, but you know who that is. And the fact that the first time we see him, he's talking to Sally, that's important. That's important to me. Also, though, this scene always makes me wonder, slight tangent. Miss Sally girl, you're telling me you didn't know that Poseidon is the father of your child? You're telling me you didn't know which god is the father of your child?
I thought she did know. She just didn't tell
But then
Percy.
why wouldn't you tell Percy?
I think she kind of ran out of time to tell Percy. Like, she was gonna fully tell him, but then, the Minotaur happened.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay.
she at least, again, breadcrumbed it, because she was like, oh, well, we met on the beach. The sea
is
is
true.
a special place for us. The woman, there were signs. There were
This is
signs.
true.
Yeah. I mean, once again, this is them, like, not telling the audience who his father is, like, for the drama, for the intrigue. But yeah, I think Sally knew. Sally knew who
She absolutely did. Okay, thank you.
But I think you can't tell Percy exactly that because it's going to be dangerous for him. And I feel like you can't have Percy walking into camp being like, "Oh, my mom said my dad is Poseidon," before he even knows that, like, he's not allowed to exist, you know?
This is true.
That's a good point too. Right. That would kind of unravel the universe a little bit.
Yes, it would.
Also, okay, this scene also raises some questions for me in terms of, like, when Gabe comes into the picture, because in her conversation with Poseidon, Sally says, like, oh, he and I living together in the city is starting to attract attention. So is Gabe not in the picture before he goes to boarding school? And then again, why didn't they give us the whole using Gabe's scent to cover Percy's scent thing? Like, is that what we're trying to, like, are we trying to allude to that here maybe a little bit?
Perhaps, but like I kind of feel like that's pretty important, because otherwise, why would Sally be with Gabe?
That's the thing. It's like they don't really tell us why Sally ended up with Gabe, or like when.
Yeah.
I mean, same with, like, Annabeth going home to see her father. I want to know why, like, this version of Annabeth makes that choice at the end of the season. I want to know why this Sally made the choice to be with Gabe. Like, is it still the same? Because I don't think that they're trying to, like, make us extrapolate, like, based on what we know from the book, because obviously this is supposed to appeal to people who haven't read the books as well.
No, I think those are definitely some just like plot points they ran out of time for, and they were like, these aren't like quintessential to understanding the story. So I have a feeling that's why those got left probably on the cutting room floor, honestly. Like, I bet half the stuff that we're like, I wish this was in there, I bet they filmed and shot and it just didn't make it in the edit.
Yeah, that might be true.
But I agree, if you didn't read the book, that's like a bunch of context you just would never have.
Either way, though, this scene is good. Like, the flashbacks save this episode for me. Like, the and maybe it's the, like, cutting back and forth that makes the underworld not hit as hard for me, but it, like, doesn't ever feel like, it doesn't really feel like the climax of this quest the way that it does in the book, you know? Like, I don't ever really feel like they are actually in danger, you know? Like, even versus Cerberus, I'm like,
I think it was a conscious choice for it not to be the plot of the season and to keep that in 8, to keep like the big climax all happening in 8. But I do agree with you that like once they hit the underworld in the quest, it's like, okay, because it's like, okay, we're gonna meet the deadline. That's like the sense of relief you get from the underworld of like, I personally don't consider the Ares fight to be the climax of like the Lightning Thief, but I guess maybe it is. I don't know.
it's interesting because like, it almost feels like, in terms of what's the most important thing that happens, like, the Luke betrayal is, like, important, but it's like, it's almost like you have the climax with, like, the underworld and the Ares fight, and then him going to Olympus, and then you, like, have the little, like, epilogue, and then you have the, like, Luke moment at the end, which is interesting. Like, I I don't know. What is
I think
the
getting the
climax? 'Cause
bolt to
I feel like it's
Zeus.
going to see Hades. I feel like that's the most intense part to me.
I do too. I would, because that's the turning point of the book. And what is the climax? The turning point. Because everything after going to visit Hades in the underworld sets up the rest
Right.
of the series. Because he truly thinks, like, he is so sure in that if he just gets to the underworld, he can get back his mom and that everything will be fixed and everything will be fine. But then he gets there and that's not really the case. He can't recover his mom. And it turns out that this is a lot bigger than just Hades stole the bolt, because that didn't happen. And so I think the rest is falling action and leads into the next book. But I wouldn't say that Luke's betrayal is the climax, because the underworld confrontation sets up for it.
True. True. Thank you, former English teacher, for coming in here with those, like, good plot things.
Plot Mountain.
Yeah. Luke's betrayal is not the climax. It's just like
It sets up the rest. Yep.
it sets everything else up. But yeah, the underworld doesn't feel like a climax here, I don't think.
No. And I think that was on purpose. I really do.
I don't know. It's interesting. For sure. Like, maybe we're trying to make the Ares fight a little bit more of the climax.
It's so fast.
Well, and it's fast because it has to be fast. But
Yeah.
I gotta say, it makes me feel so normal the way that you have Poseidon giving this voiceover that's like, oh, I'll meet him one day when he's ready. He knows who he is and where he's supposed to be, while the camera is showing Annabeth. And then you have, like, her helping Percy up, and the way that Percy, like, stares at her with his very intense gaze. And then Poseidon's like, oh, I'll be by his side, like, as Percy squares up to fight Ares. Like, the ending of this episode is good. It is good.
Yeah, it's a banger.
Yep.
But like, the underworld parts of it just don't hit for me, and I think that's why it was disappointing. Like, this flashback, everything about it is fantastic. The end, banging. But I don't know. The underworld stuff, like, kind of left me with more questions than answers, I feel like. And
Yeah. I did love getting to
ugh.
just like see the underworld, because as I've mentioned before, like I sometimes struggle to like visualize stuff when I'm reading. And so getting to see just like an actualized like underworld was really cool. Even if it wasn't exactly what's like described in the books, like it was really cool to just like see it built out and like.
Any other thoughts on 7 before we move on to the big one, the finale?
I'm ready.
Zun, zun,
Let's go.
zun.
Episode 8. Episode 8. An excellent finale. The way that it opens with Luke being like, look, you didn't ask to be a half-blood. Hello? And then, like, does that mean that Percy talking in the beginning is him quoting Luke? Because it's like what came first? Did Percy start narrating this to us before he met Luke? Probably not. So does that mean when he's like, look, I didn't want to be a half-blood, he's quoting what Luke told him? Questions.
I don't know. Okay, so the way I'm taking the narration is that he's kind of telling us this pretty shortly after all of the events have happened. Like, you're at a campfire with Percy, he's just telling you, listen, last year was crazy. Guess what happened? And also, Percy's just like more of an in the moment kind of guy. So I kind of feel like he's telling you more closely related to the moment.
Yeah, that, well, and it also feels like he's not, like he's telling you each story as somebody who doesn't know the details of the next story, because
Right. He's serializing.
he knows the details of this story because he will do stuff like, say, when he's at camp, like, oh, if only I knew how briefly I would get to enjoy my new home, and like, if only I would have known like this right now. Like, he says things to intentionally be ominous, but he never really says anything to be ominous about like things that are going to happen later.
Yeah. He's not making those connections, he's not synthesizing.
But if Percy is starting this story, like he's starting to tell us this story after the events of this summer has happened, that means he's telling us this story after Luke has told him this. So in his narration, when he says, look, I didn't want to be a half-blood, he is quoting Luke.
Okay.
But also, this just absolutely took me out, because I stand by the fact that the Good Kid reprise in the Lightning Thief musical is one of the best uses of a reprise in all of musical theater canon, because it is so good to see Luke sing his own like version of the song that like Percy sang earlier, and like change the words to like fit his worldview versus like Percy's. It's so good. It's so good. And to hear like Luke and Percy like say those same words, and I was like, it's the Good Kid reprise. It's the Good Kid reprise. Which I loved. And I loved finally getting to see like Luke training Percy, because obviously the sword fighting skills didn't come from somewhere. And getting this side by side with like Percy fighting Ares, insane. Insane.
Yeah, I was really happy to get like the Luke training Percy scenes, because like I remember leaving like after episode 2 came out and I was like, oh, okay, that's like all we got of camp really was like episode 2. And so I'm really glad that they like tied that in to 8. Yeah.
And it's also in those like fighting flashbacks with Luke, like you can really see the way that he is trying to recruit Percy, and he's trying to like feel him out. He's trying to become his friend, and he's trying to see like, is this kind of same as Annabeth, trying to see like, is this someone who can help me achieve my ends, which is excellent. Thoughts on the Ares fight? I mean, you know how I feel about fight scenes. They're there. This one's cool. I like that it happens at Montauk. I don't really have like coherent thoughts on what happens. So, any thoughts from y'all?
It was great.
Yeah, I thought it was super slay, super fun. Loved the wall of water. 10 out of 10. That was awesome. And you thought you were just a kid. Slayed.
Well, and the anger in his face when he's like,
I love it.
I warned you. You're going to find out who I am in the wall of water. No notes. No notes. It's so good.
It's incredible.
And, you know, it's very fast, but also it kind of has to be fast, because this 12-year-old cannot go toe to toe with the god of war forever. Like, eventually you're in a unwinnable fight, essentially. Like, you basically just have to outsmart him enough to draw blood before he kills you.
And that's what we did.
I didn't expect the blood to be so yellow. That's one thing.
Oh, really?
Like, I thought when I pictured like Ichor, is that how you say it? Ichor?
Yeah.
I've never said it out loud. When I pictured it more looking like liquid gold, because they talk about it as like golden blood. So I was like, oh, gold, it's gonna look like gold. But it was very yellow.
Isn't that what it? I thought it was gold.
I thought it looked pretty golden, but also I think that they were running out of VFX money. So
I thought it was very yellow, but maybe I just don't understand colors.
Are you colorblind?
Maybe my own gold jewelry is just really dirty, and so I associate gold with looking much darker.
That's funny.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, the one thing the one thing that's interesting, the only thing I found interesting about the show, one thing that's interesting here is that Ares doesn't curse him. I mean, specifically, he's like, you made an enemy for life, but he doesn't specifically tell him the whole like next time you raise your sword, you're gonna feel the curse of Ares, which is what results in him taking the sky from Artemis in the Titan's curse, because he's like, I can't win this fight because like I can't use my sword. So I don't know, it's interesting that we didn't get that. I'm not like mad about it, because I also think that like Percy probably should take the sky anyway, because he doesn't have a chance against Atlas the same way Artemis would, so like we can still reach that same ending.
I think that's a pretty strategic way, assuming that they will be able to have a season 3, that they don't have to do additional explaining and a callback to, oh, you remember the first,
True. So they go into the cabin because Percy hears his mom's voice, but his mom's not there. Oh, they also get the helm when Ares leaves, because that was the terms that Percy set. So they go into the cabin, and Mrs. Dodds is there, and so they give her the helm, whatever, and she tells Percy good luck on Olympus, and Annabeth and Grover immediately like, no, absolutely not. This is not happening. You're not going to Olympus. Zeus will kill you. And then, okay, the missing the deadline thing is an interesting choice, and I feel like I understand it a little bit more now, because the deadline didn't even really feel like it didn't feel like it was adding anything to the story, because it didn't feel like they cared about this deadline. Like it didn't feel like it was adding like tension or stakes. And so then like missing it just felt kind of random, but I feel like in missing the deadline you kind of increase Percy's kind of agency in the situation, where he's like, no, we're going to finish this quest even though we've technically failed, because like I need to stop this war. And then basically you have like Zeus who's like, oh, this war is still happening, like you missed the deadline, whatever, the war is still happening, which does kind of end up adding stakes to the Percy Zeus interaction later.
That's true. Yeah. If they would have made a bigger deal of the deadline throughout the show, I would have been more angry that they missed it. And then I also think the like finding out that they have 4 pearls and they missed the deadline all at once made both of those changes even more like, wait, what? Like, wait, what? And I think it personally, I know, it made me more reactionary to hear that both of those things changed at the same time than if it would have been just like one or the other. I would have been like, oh, okay.
I am a little surprised that they kept the last war on Olympus kicked off World War II kind of moment, just because that's kind of one of the things that you look at. Like any of the historical references in the books, it's a little bit like, maybe let's not do that. So it was interesting to keep that in. But at least we didn't imply that the children of Hades were the Nazis, I guess.
I guess, but like,
but still, if you think about that for more than
how in the world can they retcon that? That they could have just eliminated it entirely.
You also could be like, oh, there have been times in history in which like wars between the gods have kicked off like wars down here, like,
and you could have left it that ambiguous.
No need to name wars.
Yeah, and then those of us in the know could be like, hey, thank you. But, yeah, so that was a surprise to me. Also, Percy saying, I'm done running from monsters, calling Zeus a monster, when we've had this whole plot line about what makes a monster. Oh, chef's kiss. Because really, when it comes down to it, it is all Zeus's fault, because Zeus is the worst. The worst. And the necklace exchange, gotta talk about that.
Yes.
The gaze. If someone looked at me like that, I would be like, marriage immediately. Because what?
They're so stupid. The way that they're both just like definitely have crushes on each other, but neither of them really know.
Like, they're so
They're precious.
infatuated with each other in this moment. Like even if you just read it as friends at this point, this is the first time that they have that either of them have had someone their own age that they like connect with like this. And I just think that's beautiful. It's so good.
Yeah, they're besties. Don't even worry about it.
And the fact that she gives him the necklace thinking that he's gonna die, like that
yep.
he's not gonna come back, crazy.
I'm normal.
Like that necklace is very important to her, and here she is. Oh, him putting down the bolt on the desk and being like, "I'm here to see Zeus, and I don't have an appointment." Icon behavior. Icon behavior.
Yeah, that's per sassy.
Icon.
And then you get another Luke scene where he's talking about the like spiders. Like when Annabeth sees a spider, what do you think she does? The one thing you don't want to be is like
Small and
scary and
scary.
small because the gods are just gonna crush you. And so like you can really see Luke getting Percy on his team here, which is interesting. And you know, this whole Zeus interaction just really reminds me of the way that I feel about our own government right now. Because you're just like, hey, here are some real issues that we'd like to present that maybe we could do something about. And then, like, politicians are like, no, actually, we're just going to do war.
Literally.
And, you know, it's just kind of this feeling of helplessness that you sort of feel knowing that the people in power just do not listen to their constituents and do whatever serves them.
Yeah.
Relevant.
It is relevant. It is relevant. And this is a digestible way to show that to children. And that's on Zeus not listening to Percy. Like, the way that he is like, I know where Kronos is. I put him there. I'm like,
Get over yourself.
Arrogant.
yeah, exactly. Though Percy telling him that, like, his family doesn't support him because they love him. They obey him because they fear him. So what happens when someone scarier comes along?
Yeah. This is true.
He's speaking nothing but the truth. Percy did nothing wrong. Percy did nothing wrong in this confrontation. Zeus just can't handle it.
No, literally. Zeus has the emotional capacity of a teaspoon.
If that.
If that. That's generous.
And then Poseidon stepping in front of the bolt to save his son and surrendering the war to save his son.
Yeah.
But also, don't try to make me feel sympathy for any of the gods, including Poseidon. They all suck. Poseidon sucks as well.
Absolutely. Let's not forget about the lifelong neglect.
Like, I know you're not allowed or whatever, but come on.
And they have this pesky habit of only caring when it's convenient for them.
Exactly. And then the parting words from Zeus being like, make sure I never see this one again. Like, hate to tell you, bestie, you're going to be seeing a lot more of this one.
No, literally.
My next bullet point literally just said, wow, Walker's eyes look really blue.
Yeah. When he's talking to Poseidon.
Because they do. Yes.
I feel like that was edited. Or at least just like enhanced.
Like the lighting or something is there to like really make those eyes appear blue. Yeah. Because I'm like, oh, son of the sea god, for sure. Like those eyes. Oh my gosh. And then Percy using the very limited time he has with his father to ask him if he dreams about his mother.
Yeah, that was wild.
That was wild. And then Poseidon just like Uno reversing him and sending him back to camp instead of answering the question. What was the reason? What was the reason?
They love the drama of it. They really do.
Oh, they love the drama.
They do.
They love the drama. But I do have to say that I like that better than Poseidon telling him like, I'm sorry that you were born, because that always felt harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Then we get our second Percabeth hug. And this time Percy feels a lot more into it. Like he's got that big old grin. And this one also goes on for a long time because it is a strategy hug.
No, this is strategy. Battle strategy.
So it's so she can whisper in his ear about Clarice. And I want to know at what point Annabeth decides that she's going to follow Percy and Luke into the woods instead of keeping an eye on Clarice like she says she's going to.
When she sees that Clarice has, like, nothing has happened. And then when she hears about the shoes. Whenever she hears about the shoes, and then that Clarice is fine, she puts 2 and 2 together. She says, that's 4, bitch. I follow you.
I think she really needed to hear all of it to really believe it. Because in the book, she has doubts about it. She's like, well, Luke isn't so bad. Like, maybe we can... But, I mean, this is pretty definitive. There's no room for doubt, which also expedites the plot a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how we handle the Luke Annabeth of it all going forward, because
Yeah.
like I don't know that I can see this version of
Mhm.
Annabeth being so insistent that Luke isn't as bad as he seems.
I don't think I could
Yeah.
either. And that's okay. You know, if we want to give her that additional self assurance, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd be mad about it, but I also think it makes things so juicy between Annabeth and Percy for so long. I mean, I'm definitely not mad that we appear to be moving away from the like Annabeth has a crush on Luke arc, because I don't love that. But we never really see this Annabeth and this Luke interact. Not that we really see them interact in the book either. I guess like at camp they don't really interact. You more just get Annabeth's side of the story, but like I feel like we haven't gotten very much of like seeing that Annabeth really and truly like cares about Luke the way that she says she does, and I think we can still get that in coming seasons, like through hopefully getting flashbacks of like Luke, Annabeth, and Thalia on the run and like things like that. But I don't know. I also think like it's important for Annabeth to feel that way about Luke for the ending, you know, because she has to still believe in the good in Luke enough to step in and be like, family Luke, you promise, knowing that like her reminding him of that is going to like snap him out of it, like believing that he can still make the right choice, you know?
I mean, I think I see where you're going with this. Essentially, because we don't have this like familial bond between the two of them, as far as we know in the show, that won't be what turns Luke to the light at the end.
Yeah, I'm just like at this point, it doesn't feel like we have that.
Okay, I agree with you. At this point, I think the far more likely case would be his dad coming in and seeing him
Yeah.
with the way that they're setting this up. Yeah. But I mean, this is like hypothetically years from now and more episodes from now, so it could change,
Yeah.
but I could see them making it Hermes. Like Hermes finally breaks through to him because it feels like they're developing that relationship a lot more.
True. But also I don't know at what point in the books Annabeth really makes it clear the way that she feels about Luke, because she, like at the end of the Lightning Thief book, she tells Percy like, "Oh, next summer like we'll track down Luke, and like it doesn't matter if we don't get a quest, like we'll sneak off and we'll do it." Like she's kind of anti-Luke. But she goes like back and forth. So I'm like, I don't think that it's necessarily we're not going to emphasize that familiar relationship more. It's just like at this point we haven't. Like the way that we got Percy Sally flashbacks this season, I hope we get Annabeth Luke Thalia on the run
We
flashbacks.
absolutely will.
Because
Yep.
at
Yep.
that point, like I mean, because you have to cast, if you're gonna end season 2 the same place that the book ends, like you have to cast Athalia. And so I think you just throw her into those flashbacks. And so you have her with like a young Luke actor and a young Annabeth actor, and you get rid of the plot point about her like aging as a tree at all, and she just like comes back as exactly the same Thalia as she was on the run. I think that's me if I was writing it. So then that way you get a lot more of how things were for them. I don't know. So it's like it's probably coming. We just like don't have it right now. I don't know.
Yeah. I think they were
Mm.
too busy trying to world build as
Yeah.
well as like tell the story. Whereas like now with season 2, they'll be able to enter an established world and then just keep building on it.
Yeah,
I
true.
agree.
Back to the betrayal scene itself as we have it. The use of fireworks as lighting, I think, is excellent. It's very fun. Luke telling him none of that was meant to betray you. Like, what did he think was going to happen with the shoes? Like, in what world is it not betraying Percy to give him cursed shoes that are literally meant to drag him to Tartarus?
I didn't think you'd give him to Grover to wear.
No, because how was that not meant to betray him? Like,
Yeah.
how would you not be betraying him, dragging him to Tartarus?
Yeah. Fiery pits of HE double hockey sticks, bestie. It's not a good look.
Not a lot of forethought in that one.
No.
It's just such a confusing line to me, him being like, I didn't mean to betray you. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Like, you were trying to drag him to hell.
Man behavior.
I do believe that he is there to recruit, like he says. And I do think that this betrayal scene fits more than the kind of scorpion from the book. Because looking back on that now, I'm kind of like, it's weird for Luke to just show up and try to kill him. Because in later books, they talk a lot about, like, oh, Kronos is going to want to get you on his side. He's going to want to get you on his side. But for Luke to just, like, straight up try to murder him instead of trying to get him on his side at all is weird and, like, doesn't match up with that kind of narrative that they start talking about later. Maybe if Luke hadn't tried to kill him, the sales pitch would work a little bit better.
I think a higher success rate
Yeah.
for sure.
Mhm.
And then, like, this version of Luke, it feels like he doesn't really understand the way that Percy works and operates. And so he isn't able to convince Percy to join him.
So this is where you see the key differences in
Yeah.
their characters and in their motivations and their fatal flaws, right?
Yeah.
Like Luke is just so angry and he doesn't know what to do with his anger, so he's fighting. Percy is angry, but he just has so loyal already to the people that he cares about. And not that he thinks the gods are like good, but he sees what they can be. And he knows that like they can be better.
Well, and I don't think Percy is necessarily loyal to the gods at all.
Mm-mm.
Like, at all. But I do think he is so loyal to his mom and to Annabeth and to Grover and to Camp. And he kind of sees that, like, the gods are the best thing for, like, the people that I am loyal to. Luke and Percy are similar. We're not the same. And I think Luke didn't recognize that in their little sword fighting conversation that they had, because it just felt like he was kind of like recognizing in Percy, like, yes, Percy also feels this way about the gods, but like didn't see that, like, the way he's like so driven by the distrust from the gods, like that's not what Percy is driven by.
Yeah.
Oh, it's also interesting that Luke doesn't explain the like double metal sword and how it can kill mortals and immortals both.
Yeah.
Because that's a real big red flag. That's a red flag.
Yep. And pretty important to the rest of the story as well.
Yeah, instead we just make portals, which I guess he also does in the book, but it was weird. Because also that's like not a thing that he does again. So it's like, why give him this power? Okay, back to the Annabeth of it all. I want to know what his thought process is regarding her. Like, he kind of tries to recruit Percy, but he doesn't seem to make any effort to recruit Annabeth, at least from what we see. So, like, does he think Annabeth already knows what's going on and assume that, like, she's already on his side? Does he assume that, like, she's not gonna join? Does he think that she would join, like, if Percy joined? Like, what is he thinking?
I think he doesn't want to go to her until it's like the first sure thing. And I think it's like he's like a little unsure. And so he can't go to her when he knows she's smarter than him with a not well thought out plan, an idea, until it's like fully formed.
I agree. I think in a way he's trying to protect her from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he knows
sense.
it's going to completely shatter his relationship with her. So he's
Yeah.
holding it off.
Okay, then also, I have some questions about the time jump that just immediately happens because all of a sudden camp is over.
They said, we got to wrap it up. They said, epilogue, let's go.
It's the end of the summer.
What do you do when the quest is ended? What do you do when the battle's won? So many questions left unanswered. So many things still left undone. What do you do? Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah. But because, like, Luke doesn't betray Percy in the book until the last day of summer, it doesn't feel like that's what happened here. Like, it feels like this happened very quickly after the quest, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, camp is over. And so, like, in the book, they get there's a lot of, like, it's kind of Percy telling us about the summer, but you get a lot of Percy and Annabeth, like, hanging out, and Percy and Annabeth doing things and, like, doing camp fun stuff before the end happens. So it's like, where did all that go? Where's their fun at camp summer?
I think they just ran out of time.
Yeah, I think they did too. But you
I
know what
do
they
too.
didn't run out of time for? A Disney World product placement moment.
That did make me giggle.
Of course, they always have time for capitalism.
Always.
I mean, it was funny. I didn't hate it. But also you didn't tell me why Annabeth is going home. Like, you gave me no indication that she would want to go home. All of a sudden she's just going home. Like, that is a big step for her in the book, and you just like didn't give that to me.
This is true.
Yeah. I realized, like, as I was watching episode 8 to do this, I realized I had a lot more negative things to say about episode 8 than I thought. Originally, I was like, oh, I think 8 is my favorite and like 5 is my second favorite, but now I think 5 is my favorite just because of all the pieces that 8 doesn't wrap up in a satisfying way to me. However, what was satisfying, Grover's little sorcerer's license flower. It's so cute.
It's so cute.
That was great. The horns.
Yeah. Oh, and then them being like, no matter what, like, let's meet here next year. And you know what? Thalia took that personally. She's like, okay, Percy, I'll be there. A year from now, Thalia's back, baby.
Slay.
I hope that we get, I mean, I hope that we get seasons 3, 4, 5, but I need Thalia so bad. I love her.
That's my Afraid of Heights daughter of Zeus.
And then, okay, the Sally Percy reunion is sweet. All I can think about is, like, obviously Walker has aged throughout this filming process. So, like, Sally is reuniting with a Percy who looks like he has aged a year, which is just kind of funny.
What are you talking about? He just had a growth spurt over the summer. It's fun.
He's been through it. He's been through it in the couple of months since she disappeared. Like, even though it's revealed that, like, this is a dream, I'm choosing to believe this was how their actual reunion went down because it's sweet.
Oh, I think so for sure.
Also, Percy's going to 7th grade. A sleigh.
Not a sleigh. 7th grade is the worst.
No, it's horrible. Trash garbage.
I didn't want to say it.
I'm sorry, we're closing in on my bedtime.
I know.
Yes, I know. We're almost done. We're so close. Percy calling Kronos grandpa.
That was great.
And Sally being like, don't call him that.
And then I love this little glimpse of like Percy protecting Sally from like the scary things he's seeing when she's like, all right, what did he say this time? And he's like, he told me, just tell your mom you love her. Cronus, Lord of the Titans, said that. I love her.
Yeah, but I think it is a good way to show us that, like, things between Percy and Sally are never going to be quite what they were, because now there's this whole part of his life that, like, he really can't share with her.
I mean, he can, but he won't.
Yeah. Also, the ending voiceover and him, like, getting ready for 7th grade like it's a quest, because 7th grade is canonically
It's challenging.
a quest. Like, 7th grade is 7th grade. And getting the blue pancakes and the, like, it is funny that he starts out being like, look, I didn't want to be a half-blood, and like, you don't want to be one either. And then we kind of end with like,
let's recruit.
You might be one of us, and like, we might need you. The last thing, the Gabe post-credit scene.
Incredible.
I just want to say that I saw it coming. I did. Because at first I was like, I don't know if we're still like gonna behead Medusa. Like, that feels like a lot, especially when it's rumored to be like this episode where we're discussing like monstrous women and like, are we still going to end it the same way, or like, are we going to come to a different conclusion, whatever. And we still did that, and I was like, okay. So we saw Gabe not have great boundaries and like answer Sally's phone and stuff. I'm like, so when the package shows up, I think we're still going to statue Gabe because he's going to open the package and he's going to get statued for mail theft, because yeah, that's a crime. And look at me, 26-year-old woman able to make correct predictions about a children's TV show.
Slade.
Finally, I'm just kidding.
Overall, I think it's a good start. I'm very happy with
Absolutely
what we have, and I hope that it only gets better from here. You know, I think it's an excellent, solid foundation. And there's a lot of shows that I love that I don't love the first season of. Like, think about like a show like Parks and Rec. The first like 3 seasons are kind of garbage. So I think all the things that I'm like upset about, I'm willing to get over, because I don't think that there's anything that's like not fixable. Like, we're not able to like improve on anything that I'm kind of like, didn't love that, you know?
Yeah. I like fully decided like when this first came out to just love it for what it was, because I knew it was like the most accurate adaptation we were ever going to get. And so it's like it's this.
Mhm.
Like, this is it, dude. We're getting the adaptation of a lifetime. And so for
Yeah.
like every critique I have of it, like I completely understand each decision they made and I can justify the decisions they made. And as like a lover of the book for, I don't know, over a decade, like I am very happy with that. And I can live with that.
I mean, I also think I had to kind of intentionally go in and be like, okay, it's not going to be the book, and that's okay. Because obviously I'm a person, like the amount of times I'm like, well, in the book, well, in the book, well, in the book, like just while we were having this conversation, like I know the books very well. And so I've said it before, I'll say it again. Like, I think the musical did a lot for me in helping me realize that, like, if the vibes are there, I can overlook a lot of things like not being exactly the same. And I think the vibes are there. The vibes are there. The vibes are there, similar to the way that the vibes are there in the musical.
Right. It has the heart.
I do still think the musical is my favorite adaptation, but you know, that just has to do with me as a person.
Fair enough.
Now you both need to watch the musical.
I will find a slime tutorial.
Oh, I have one.
Oh, you do? Oh,
Uh-huh.
I feel like this is going to be mandatory viewing this weekend.
Yeah, well, let's meet back here this time next year and record a podcast about the musical.
I'm gonna punch you in the face. I'm kidding. That was funny.
Yeah. Any closing final thoughts from y'all?
You know, I feel like after talking about Percy Jackson for 3 hours straight, my mind is so empty right now. I have nothing else to say.
All the thoughts are out. You said them all.
Yeah, I think I did it.
Same. I love this world.
Yeah, it's delightful. And I love you both.
I'm gonna say back this time, I love you too.
Thank you, Sydney.
I love
There will be
you.
no sad memes this time.
All right, well, it's been a delight to talk to you both about Percy Jackson for 3 hours. I gotta go see if there's still a mouse in my kitchen.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Oh my god, I forgot about the mouse.
I wish I didn't know that. Love you, bestie. Bye.
Love you, bestie.
Love you, besties. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening. If you liked what you heard, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or Twitter at DemigodDebutPod. Next week, Julie will be making her triumphant return to start the Sea of Monsters, so stay tuned for that. Bye!